Hi, everybody. Welcome to another interview with an artist that we'll be working with next year in 2021, Nicole Banowetz. Welcome today. I'm Eriq Hochuli. I'm the curator at Foothills Art Center, and we are here to talk today to Nicole about her really exciting and interesting style and media that she works in, and just get a little bit more in depth into her artwork. If you've seen these before, we've got a bunch of these interviews up, and today we'll be here for another 15 or 20 minutes just talking to Nicole. So, hi, hello, welcome.
Hello.
Uh, um, would you like to just introduce yourself and what it is you do and what you're kind of known for, just to start?
So my name is Nicole Banowetz, and I am a Colorado sculptor. I make inflatable sculptures, and they're sewn out of fabric, and they inflate with forced air.
Cool. Yeah, where did I see your work at first? Oh, at Art of the State at the Arvada Center. That was the first place I saw your work. You had it was black.
Mhm.
Um, was there,
This is that
was
like
it all black
crystal.
and white?
It was black and like a kind of yellow color. It
Oh,
was
okay.
dyed. Mhm.
Yeah, they have this incredible like organic form to them with tendrils. And I mean we should just start by pulling up I think some images of your work, because talking about it is silly when we could just be showing people what it looks like. So I'm going to pull up this share here. You're seeing your work now, right?
Yep.
Okay. And here's the first piece that you sent me a photo of. What can you tell me about what I really am curious of is your planning process.
So for this piece, it was a site-specific piece. So you can kind of tell it fits right into that space. And that space is an old silo that exists in Houston, Texas. And they do a show once a year. It's only open for a few months every year
Hmm.
for this show. And so they bring in artists to make specific works for this really bizarre, amazing space. So
Wow. Yeah, that's such a cool place to do an install. So, wow. What an interesting space to try and design something for. So you purpose built this work to fit this like tall cylinder. How tall are the ceilings in there?
so this one, it's sort of like a cone that's coming down. So the blower is actually inside of that cone in the top of the silo. And I think it was about 12 feet tall, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. Wow. It looks almost taller than that in the picture. It must just be like kind of the view. So
Yeah, the silos have this bizarre feel where they feel like even bigger than they are, even though
like
they're
the Willy Wonka room where the door is really small at the end of the room. So you hid the blower in this one. So for those of you who don't know or have never been in like a bounce castle, which is the similar property behind these sculptures, in order to stay inflated, they have a fan constantly blowing to keep air flowing through them, and then basically the air is released in like a limited fashion so that it doesn't overpressurize. Is that the idea?
yeah, generally it just kind of leaks out all of the seams. And my pieces are complicated enough that there's enough seams naturally that it's just kind of letting a little bit of air out all the time.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, enough air flows through that they don't pop, but you have to keep supplying it with new air or else they would deflate. And the blower you said is, can you see my cursor? The blower
Yeah,
is up
right
up
in there.
top centered here.
Mhm.
Okay. Wow, that's incredible. So what does your planning process look like? Do you start with drawings? Do you start with some kind of, you know,
Yeah, so with this
3D modeling?
I usually start doing like kind of research on what I'm interested in creating. So sometimes I'm looking at like microscopic imagery or cocoons or larvae. And then I will make first just kind of rudimentary drawings, like sketchy sort of drawings. If the forms are really complicated, I might make small models out of like Fimo clay to help kind of visualize it in 3D.
Uh-huh.
But then from there, I draft all of my patterns on paper. So for every section of that sculpture that you see, there's like a paper pattern that coincides with it.
Okay. Got you.
So once I have my paper patterns, I then cut out all the fabric pieces and start piecing them together. With this piece, because there is a mixture of color, there's a lot more design too that goes into like which color goes where, and the pinkish color here that is
Hmm.
dyed. So I actually had to dye all that fabric. So there's a lot of different layers that go into the planning.
Yeah, we had talked about you dyeing fabric when I first met with you. And this is like a plasticky vinyl material, or is it like ripstop? What do
It,
you use?
it's nylon with a plastic coating.
Oh, with a plastic coating, and that keeps it more airtight, the
Yeah,
coating?
more
Okay.
airtight. And then for the pieces that I go take out and put outside, it makes it weatherproof for outside as well.
Oh, cool. And then you dye it with traditional fabric dye?
So the only part of this that's dyed is that pink color because
Oh, okay.
I can buy the grays and the yellows, the really bright colors, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't because they're more commercial fabrics. They don't sell like a fleshy pink.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not
So
like a
yeah,
particularly attractive color in
people
in like your,
in your
yeah.
tent or your backpack.
Okay.
So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I use acid dyes because it's so plasticky. You can't use like a natural dye.
right. So it's got to be something with some like a caustic nature that gets in there
Hmm.
to permeate the substance.
Yeah.
Man, that's so interesting. So let's move on to your next one here. I want to talk a little bit about the subject matter that interests you and that you make reference to in your work. This one is worn, huh?
Yeah, so this is a wearable, and there's actually, you can see me, but I have a backpack that I'm wearing that is encased inside of the inflatable. And inside of that backpack, there's two fans and a battery.
I'm
So,
like, I can't help but get my face. I'm sorry for everybody who's looking at my face, even though it's probably really small in the recording. You're probably just looking at my forehead because I keep leaning into the screen to get like a closer look at things when I could just be zooming in. It just really drawing me in. I'm trying to find the strap of the backpack is what I'm looking for and delineate like where your arms are. Like here's a hand, right?
see my hand there.
Okay.
My other arm is actually reaching back. And
Oh, okay,
reaching
here.
back there.
Oh, there we are.
There's my other hand.
And then there's a strap. You got spikes coming off of the straps too.
Yeah, so the spikes are trying to kind of hide the strap a little bit so you can't see it as well.
It's pretty well hidden to me. Is this a battery pack? What's is
That's
hang?
a switch that turns it on. So that
Oh,
actually
okay,
turns on and off.
cool. So have you learned anything about soldering and like a little bit of electrical engineering to rig up switches and stuff, or for the most part, it's pre-built?
I've learned a little bit about kind of wiring up different setups for batteries and things. And especially when I do work that's lit and I have to deal with LED lights, I'm also doing
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of wiring there. So actually have a friend that works at a battery store. So he's helped me a lot when I've been figuring out stuff that involves batteries.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah,
That's
it's great.
yeah, especially if you're gonna have something worn, right? You don't want to be tethered to a wall.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I'm sorry. So my original question was, where was the subject matter inspiration for this? I know we've talked about microorganisms a lot and their little tendrils and their cellular nature. Is that where this one comes from?
So this one is actually inspired more by this sort of behavior called a diametic behavior, which is a behavior you find in animals and insects. And the idea is that it's the prey is tricking the predator. And so one example is like a caterpillar that has two heads or a moth that has eye spots. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, the idea is that the predator could actually eat the prey, but it gets tricked. And
Mm-hmm.
so this piece, I'm thinking about myself as this like female body that's vulnerable, but then creating this giant inflatable creature that is like this protection that's covered in spikes and really large. But in reality, it's just air and it's soft. So it feels very
Okay.
powerful, but in reality, it's not.
So yeah, so like birds who puff themselves up with air, or
Yeah.
there's those they're frogs, right? There's like poison frogs, and then there are frogs that live nearby that just kind of have similar colors, and
Yeah,
they,
exactly.
right? So you're co-opting the idea of a porcupine with like spikes that would be defense, but you have like in theory, right? You'd have less less mechanical investment from your body to create spikes like this if they were false. So that would give you like an evolutionary advantage. I think that stuff is so interesting. So that's really cool. So it's all about that, like, defensive posturing, right?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's cool. Anything you wanted to say about the kind of anonymous mask approach and Is that just to fit your, like, so that your face doesn't stick out? Because humans are just, we're like drawn to a face, and that's not the important part.
Yeah, well, I wanted to cover my face originally, and so I got the mask, and then when I wore it, I had a really people had a really strong reaction to there being this like something human there, but that's like kind of expressionless. So I decided to sort of keep using that mask because it really drew people into the piece, having that human element that was still there, but was kind of absent at the same time.
Yeah, we just had this discussion the other day with an artist who does, and this was in a digital tour I did of our member show, of an artist who deliberately started removing faces from her work to try and get people to look at other things,
Mm,
because it's so tied into being a human being, like how we see faces in cars, how like that's just part of car design. They talk about the eyes of a car as the headlights. So like you're always looking for faces in artwork, and if you really want to make sure people are looking at a different thing, you can use that tactic of just deleting the face and making like a mannequin face, where it's just flat, or like what you have here, if effectively in this mask, is just to kind of get rid of all of the discernible features, so that the human form blends into everything else, and it can kind of balance out the where the eye is going to go naturally when looking at the work. So I think that that's really interesting. It just happens to be that we were just talking about that the other day as another
yeah, and it's
piece of it.
interesting. I feel like even when there are no facial forms in my work, people will be like, "Oh, that's sort of like a face," or that like it is something that people always.
Yeah, it's in everything. It's like, it's why I think people see, there's probably other reasons also, but why people see like Jesus in their toast is because
Yeah,
like you're always looking for faces wherever you look, and it's just this intrinsic part of design, and you can get a lot out of that if you're trying to convey a certain emotion with your design. Find a face in it, and then make the face express what you want to express out of the design, right? You can make a car look really like angry and mean, or relaxed and happy. I keep going back to cars. I think that's like the most obvious thing, but I'm sure it exists in appliances and other industrial design also.
yeah,
Yeah,
human.
this one's so cool. Let's click on to the next one here if I can. Whoop, there's our arrow. Oh, here's another wearable one. See, I didn't even see the person in there. Is this the same piece, or no? This one's different.
This is a different piece, and this is actually a piece I just created in Joshua Tree, so you can kind of see the
Oh
environment.
yeah, we got a little bit more resolution in this one. We can zoom way in. Okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead, tell me all about it.
so this piece is inspired by the yucca moth, which has a obligate mutualist relationship with the Joshua Tree, which means the only way they can survive is with one another, because the yucca moth is the only thing that pollinates the Joshua Tree, and the Joshua Tree is the only thing that supports the larva of the yucca moth.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Obligate neutralist.
obligate mutualism.
Oh, mutualism.
Yeah,
Okay, not Nancy.
yeah.
Michael.
Mhm.
Okay, got it. Mutualism. So they are bound to one another. And
Yeah.
this is like another, like you would put this in a chart. Like there would be like symbiotic,
Mhm.
like, yeah, what's it, synergistic. And this is, so they are bound to each other for their survival as a species, as a genus. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and it's
So
really interesting right now because as the climate changes, there's certain areas where the tree can survive, but the moth can't, and there's places where the moth can survive, but the tree can't. But without each other, that means in the future they'll start to go extinct. So I talked to a someone who worked at Joshua Tree, and they were saying, one of the issues is maybe they'll put the Joshua Tree on the endangered species list, but they don't care about this moth because it's like not a very beautiful moth. And so
oh,
the thing is, if you don't protect the moth, still the Joshua Tree will die.
is there yeah, I wonder how much of that favoritism there is in the decisions made about these lists, and what are the cute animals with interesting features or pretty colors that get them higher up on the list, or get them fast tracked to getting on the list, you
Yeah,
know
there's lots of studies about like, the scientists that work with like elephants and whales are things that get a lot of funding. But if you work with like a small, lizard, people don't
yeah.
care much.
yeah, I mean, it seems silly to say, but like speciesism, it's undeniable. Like if the closer something is to us, then if we have an evolutionary connection like we do with dogs, or if we have a physical connection like we do to other mammals, or things that like care for their young, for instance, like we're automatically going to have a tighter care for them, a greater care for them than something like you said, like a lizard, which it's got less heart valves and the like. um, yeah, I really can see. We're getting into more of a biology discussion, which I find extremely interesting. If I didn't get into art, I wanted to do science, and my school just didn't really offer it when I was deciding. Anyway, this there's definitely reminiscent of a like a moth head here, right? I'm seeing that
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
in this image, I should have sent 2 images. This image, the wings are actually tucked in.
There's
So
wings.
the wings are inside of it, and they actually can, there's a panel on the outside that opens, and then I can pull the wings out. So right now it's sort of just like a caterpillar, but the wings
Oh, okay.
inside of it. So it made it so it could transform.
Is that you wearing it this time too?
Yeah, that's me. And it actually, so I made an inflatable Joshua tree as well. And I did a performance at the end of my stay where I took these sort of pollen balls that I made from an actual Joshua tree, and then I pollinated my inflatable Joshua tree.
Oh, cool. Is this the tree in question?
So that is a Joshua tree.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're kind of the famous tree of the Joshua Tree National Park. They're the
The
very
titular tree. Man, it's really awesome that you took this photo in this setting. I don't think you get this opportunity in some art forms. And I know that we've juried shows where people will do paintings and they'll set them on, like there's one I can think of. I'm not going to out anybody obviously, but it was something like a painting was on a mantle and they dolled it up with it had like a Christmas theme or something, and they dolled it up with some sprigs of pine and pine cones, and they dressed up, and this was entry into a show, right? And I just, me and the other person who were joining the show were just so turned off because we felt like, why aren't you just showing us the artwork? Like I don't care about the accoutrement. I don't care about the decoration that you're putting in and how you're trying to artificially impose a theme. But in this instance, you're not that you're just sitting on a mantle with decoration. You're actually in the location. But like you couldn't do that with a painting regardless. I think you would still feel like it was taking away from it. But in this instance, you brought the work to the perfect location, and it adds overall. It's like getting to see this in a gallery space would be worse because it's like looking at an animal in a zoo, right? Like it's not in its natural habitat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Let's move to your next one, which I think is the one in the Denver Art Museum, right?
I think that is the next one. Awesome.
This was in what's the section of the museum called? It's like the
It's sort
family
of
center.
like an interactive family area. So it's a place where there's like always kind of something for kids to interact with and kind of play, but not exactly.
Yeah, the colors, especially the reds and the pinks in this one, are just fantastic. How did you get these patterns on here? Are those sewn in?
So they're all applique. So basically, I'm layering the different levels of fabric. So a piece like this takes much longer than the plain white pieces because for each section, I'm cutting multiple pieces. Then I'm cutting like holes in some of them and then sewing them down and just like layering them.
Oh, that's so they're so awesome. This one has a real playful nature to it, where where we were talking about the other one that you were wearing with the spikes is like a little bit aggressive and something that you would approach with caution. There's something about this one that's really like fun and happy. I think it might be something about these like very kind of round, bubbly shapes. They
Mm-hmm.
feel like a little bit cartoony, and I love your use of clear, the clear plastic. Also, you then got stuff inside them too, huh?
Yeah, so inside, they're basically like incubation sort of chambers that have these like larval forms in them.
Oh, I feel it. I feel that.
So the idea is that everything in this installation is transforming, and the table that you see in the image is an area where you can sit and draw what you think the larva will turn into. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
like an interactive element. And then
Okay.
I collected all those drawings and I made new creatures for the space that were based on the drawings that guests had made at the museum.
Oh, so the installation kind of grew over time.
Yeah, so I added three kind of big kind of creatures that were a conglomeration of all the different drawings people made.
Is this photo we're looking at right after it was first installed? So
Yeah,
there's, oh, okay. So things are added later on.
yeah. So
Oh,
the area kind of behind this had another piece on the wall, and then the one that's hanging over that kind of drop there. I actually unzipped that bottom part and I added a giant creature that kind of went down into the first floor of the building more.
oh wow. I'm so fascinated with this as an art form. And do you know anybody else that's working? Right? Well, I saw a person, right? And I thought it was you. Didn't we
Yeah.
just have that happen where I had texted you and was like, "Oh, this is," or emailed you rather
And
about.
I never figured out the name of that artist, but I think they might be from Taos, is what someone told me maybe.
New Mexico would make
Yeah.
sense, right? Because that's where Meow Wolf was from. We're
Yeah.
like inside baseball right now, but I was at an event that Meow Wolf was putting on in Denver, and there was an inflatable artist that was on display there, and I just assumed because I'd never heard of it before as an art form, really, outside of like Halloween costumes, I guess was never, if that counts, that where it was really being used. So that's I just assumed it had to be you, but the stuff we're looking at today was on like this stuff looks like it's on a completely other level to what I had seen. In terms of the detail and the ambition of like the installations. We're like really up against our time here because I'm supposed to try and keep these short. The first
Okay.
time I did an interview, I let it go for an hour because I was having so much fun, and then Anna
You
told me that nobody's going to
did.
watch them, so we're trying to keep them, under 20 minutes or so. Um, we are just so I'm so fascinated with your artwork, and can you want to go ahead and plug if you have social media for people to see more of your work?
Yeah, I have my Instagram is just Nicole Banowetz, and then I also have just a normal website that's also Nicole Banowetz. So just basically, if you look up my name, you can find it all.
Awesome. Let's stop the share here. Yeah, I really just want to thank you for your time and for talking with me. I'm just so fascinated with your work, and I'm really looking forward to working with you. Everybody watching, we're going to be bringing in Nicole's work in 2021 into our North Gallery and just letting her run wild with the rooms over there and do some installations. And I'm really, really excited for that. Um, so yeah, so if you like what we're doing and you want to support us, we do encourage you to become a member of Foothills Art Center and donate if you can. We're trying to get our schedule going forward, figured out. As it stands right now, the shelter in place order goes until April 26th. So if that stands, then we could definitely be looking at reopening to the public in June. Once everything gets, I'll take the entire month of May to install, and then we will reopen and get back to the business of inspiring people and showing people art. But again, thank you, and thank you everybody for watching, and I'm going to cut the recording.